things like oh, this music is being recorded. Got it. It's talking at me. I'll concentrate now. David Wood used to produce these shows, things like the Ideal Gnome exhibition, and the Selfish Shellfish, and we used to go and see those as kids. So that was sort of my first introduction to watching theatre. And then when I started doing it myself, my dad wanted me to play the piano, and my brother. And so I started playing the piano. I just sort of did as I was told, and I kind of took to it. I was never very academic. And then eventually I went to a piano teacher called Ivy Mae Wilcox, Miss Wilcox, who was a bit of a dragon and would be had up now because she used to have a cane. And if you weren't playing or doing the right fingering things, she used to rap you or doing it in time. She used to sort of, I guess not that hard, but, you know, hit you over the knuckles. And she taught singing. And she said I had to have singing lessons. And we were all too scared to say no. So I then started having singing lessons and going around to old people's homes with her singing group called the Maytones. Yeah, and then it just developed from there. And then I wanted to do some tap dancing. So I started having tap dancing at the Maureen Ryan School of Dance. And then Maureen Ryan used to choreograph for an amateur dramatics company. And they were doing MAME. And they needed a little boy. And I went and auditioned and I did not get the good part of Patrick, the nephew. I got the rubbish part at the end, which was one scene and of Peter. And that was it really then. It just everything clicked and I loved it. And I was a member of that. That was 1987. And I was a member of that amateur society, St Mary's Players, until I went to drama school. In 1993, and now I'm president. They kindly asked me back to be president, so I'm still very much involved in that because I just think they do brilliant shows. There's so much amateur theatre in Bristol, and I think it's just such a brilliant training ground. And we used to do what we called the main show, which was, you know, Oklahoma, Kiss Me Kate, whatever. And then in the spring and then in the autumn, we used to do an old time music hall. And I'm still doing old time music hall today. And then some of it, I'm still using the same music that I used to use then. So it was really good training ground. We used to turn up at various places and take this music hall all around Bristol. I remember doing it on a boat somewhere in the docks. And every year we used to go to the Fish Ponds Blind Club, which is what it was. But we used to dress up and do all the choreography for an entirely blind audience. So I never, even at that age, I didn't quite understand why we were doing the costumes and the movement. But anyway, we used to put on these shows, and it was real. And now I was never fazed by touring when I was working because I've dressed up for a whole blind audience. I've done it on the hull of a ship, you know. So touring was always a happy experience for me. So in a nutshell, that's how it started. I've missed out.
When did you decide that you wanted to perform on a professional level? What made you go, that's it?
I don't really know. There was no kind of lightning bolt moment. I always knew that I was going to have to do something with music or drama or acting or something because I couldn't do anything else. I was rubbish at science and things like that and maths, and I still can't add up. So I sort of had to do that. And I went through various phases thinking, am I going to be a piano teacher? At one point I was going to be a music therapist. And then I auditioned for drama school. I remember sending off all of the brochures for Arts Ed and Mount View and Guildford. And I actually only auditioned at Guildford because they were doing a degree course, which was a new thing then for drama schools to do degree courses. And I got in, and I didn't go. We sort of, we weren't. Money wasn't like terribly tight, but like you had to pay £30 to go for an audition. So it was like, what? I was just doing them one at a time because I thought, we couldn't afford to pay hundreds and hundreds. I went to some university courses as well, like to interview. But when I got into Guildford, it was like, yes, that's where I want to go. And it felt right. And I was very much a homeboy, and I was quite homesick when I first went. But although I grew up in Bristol, my parents were close to Bath, went to school in Bath, and Guildford and Bath are a similar size, city and town, and it felt quite homely. And it wasn't that it was the right. I don't think I would have coped moving straight to the centre of London.
What was your time at drama school like? Is it as tough as people say it is? I mean, you hear
It
different
was tough.
stories. Yeah.
I think it's very different now. I think the whole drama training has completely changed. I'm very out of touch with how it is. But it was still quite the old-fashioned, they broke you down and built you back up again. And girls are made to come in with no makeup on and all that sort of thing. Not everybody, but I had a great time. It took me a good year to settle in. And I think I was very young. I went to 18. I was a very young 18. I was 18 going on 14. All I thought it was going to be was, I thought it was going to be like fame. I thought it was going to be like putting on shows, and then suddenly you're having to face things about yourself and what have you. So I think for me, a lot of it kind of clicked into place after I started working. I really needed a year out to kind of experience life before I went to drama school, I think. But I had a great time. I mean, we were quite a strong year. Diane Pilkington was in my year, and Caroline Sheen was in my year. Matt Harrop, Mark Goldthorpe, Lucy Harris, Rachel Tyler. There were a lot of people. And also there were some brilliant people who have gone on and done amazing things, not in the theatre, working with public speaking and a state agency and all sorts of things. So it was a really strong year. We were quite fiery as well. So it was really good. And Jerry Tebbutt took over at Guildford on the same day as I did, and kind of introduced people working as you went through, just small things, because he had a lot of contacts in the business. And I did a tour with Danny LaRue while I was at school, while I was at college, doing Old Time Music Hall, and so we got that sort of experience as well.
Is there a moment at drama school that has stuck with you to this day, a thing that you remember doing?
Absolutely. Barbara Cook, the Broadway star, came and did a masterclass, and that was just a light went on for me then. And she was absolutely stunning. It was breathtaking. And off the back of that, I went to see her in concert at Drury Lane. And then she started talking about a singer-songwriter called Amanda McBroom, who I'd never heard of. So then I went to see her. And it just opened a whole world to me, which took a long time for me to start working in that cabaret world. But it's all back to Barbara Cook. And so that masterclass for me was like 3 years drama training in an afternoon. I didn't even sing at the masterclass. And then we had other hilarious masterclasses. Liliane Montevecchi came and did one. And people would get up and sing, and she'd go, very nice, sit down, and then start telling stories about herself. It was hilarious. And Lorna Luft came and did one. So we had quite a nice exposure to various people. So yeah, but the Barbara Cook one was the one.
What would your advice be to anyone going into drama school? What would you say that they need to remember or think about while they're there?
It's not the end. What you're getting at drama school are the little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, and you won't start making the picture until you have left and are working. I think it can be very all-consuming, and also there's that thing, and it just happens. It's just what it is. But usually in a drama school, in the third year, you start doing shows, and then there are people that get bigger parts than you do. And that feels literally like the end of the world. And there were people in my year, I think, really, that because they weren't getting the parts, or there was, we did the agent showcase and they didn't initially get interest. That was like it, and they never worked. And it was almost like everything was pinned on these certain dates. And then that I don't know if it's still like that. I have no idea. But there are other avenues into the business. So it's just tools. It's not the end result.
Yeah. So how long after leaving drama school did you get your first job? Was it straight away?
It wasn't quite straight away. I mean, when I was at drama school, as I say, I did a couple of things just because I was really precocious, I guess. There used to be a series called the Lost Musicals. Ian Marshfish used to do forgotten musicals, kind of concerts on a Sunday afternoon with West Endy people. And I wrote to him and auditioned and got one of those while I was at drama school. I wrote to a producer called Jo Benjamin, and she I went and met her, and I ended up doing a concert version of Anyone Can Whistle at the Covent Garden Festival. But then I left drama school, and then I didn't. Jerry Tebbett was directing pantomime that year at Watford, and he said to me very kindly, "If you don't have anything else, come and be a merry man at Watford." So I did. I played Alan Adale, and so that was really my first job. And then one of my kind of hustle gigs was I used to play the piano in the theatre, the Even Arno Theatre, on a Tuesday and Thursday in the restaurant before, during the interval, and after the show. And I went back after Panto, and Jamie Barber, the late great Jamie Barber, who ran the theatre at the time, came in and said, "Oh my gosh, I thought you'd left. I didn't realize you were still here." And I said, "I've just finished pantomime." And he said, "Well, what are you doing next?" I said, "Nothing." And he said, "There's an audition tomorrow morning. Go to this place. I'm doing a show about Dame Edna, with Dame Edna. And they, I think you'd be right for it." So I literally turned up the next morning at the audition, and unbelievably, I took a song from a show I'd done at college about the murder of Rasputin, called Killing Rasputin or Yusupov. It had two titles. And I took one of those songs, and the people that wrote that were writing the Dame Edna show. It looked like the cheesiest thing in the world. So I took that, and anyway, I got the job. And that was kind of after Panda. That was my first big. I did a tour. We did a tour and went into the West End.
And who have you enjoyed working with the most out of?
Oh, the most, and that's so hard. Lots of people who've just become friends. I mean, well-known people from that side of it. I mean, I did Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with Biggins, who is a great friend now. I've done pantomime with Leslie Joseph and Brian Connolly, and all of those people. Linda Bellingham was amazing. They're the Crankies, people that you sort of can. I love working with people that you stand in the wings and you watch them and you think, well, that's why you've had a 60-year career, or a 50-year. I'm not aging any of these people, but that's why you've had the career at the level that you're at, because you're brilliant. You're an absolute genius at what you do. That's sort of the well-known people. I like working with nice people. I just like working with nice people. And when I'm if I'm directing something, or if I'm, then I just want to work with. I always choose people, not that anybody I've not worked with hasn't got the job is because they're not very nice, but that's my first thing, because I think you just get more out of people. I'm doing this afternoon, I'm rehearsing a Noel Coward sort of gig with Helen Power, who I've worked with. Helen, she's been saddled with me more times than anybody else. But we've done a tour of Salad Days together. We toured Noel and Gertie together. We've done Me and My Girl together. We've done lots of shows together, and we just hit it off. There's a brilliant choreographer, Amy Lee, who I love working with, but that's because we have a shorthand, and we're very good friends. And of course, my pantomime sister, Neil. So yeah, I mean, there's loads of people. I like working with nice people.
So you're probably best known for playing an ugly stepsister in Panto. You've been doing it for a number of years now.
13.
How did you get involved with that? How did you start doing ugly stepsister and stick with it?
I just auditioned, actually. So it was called Kudos at the time, and I can't get used to calling it Crossroads. So if I refer to it as Kudos, it's Crossroads. Kudos had a very successful pair of sisters, Nigel Ellicott and Peter Robbins. And Peter, sadly, they were going to Wolverhampton, and Peter sadly and suddenly died. And understandably, they'd been together for so many years. Nigel didn't want to work with another sister. So they were two sisters short, and my agent at the time, Hilary Gagan, just called and said, "You've got an audition for..." And I sang, I took like a music hall song. I took When Father Papered the Parlour, and I got to the end, and Jonathan Kiley said, "Well, I guess Danny LaRue's not dead while you're singing." And I came out and phoned my agent and said, "I've either got a job for life, or I'll never darken their doorstep again." I don't really know which way that went. Anyway, I'm not saying I've got a job for life, but I got the job, and so I did that first one. at Wolverhampton, and for the first, I've done 13, and for the first 8, I had different sisters. I wasn't just paired up. And at the time, I think that was really good because, again, I got on with all of them, and they were all brilliant. But various, one left the business, one retired. Brian Godfrey sadly passed away. One guy loved panto but didn't like doing ugly. He liked being dame, so he didn't want to come back and do it. But actually, that was really good grounding. And also, I think I was only, I guess, I don't know how old I was, like just early 30s. It just meant that panto at that point was just a job I did at Christmas. I wasn't tied in. As it happened, I don't love doing long runs. So it's formed a nice kind of year. But every year, I don't know if I'm going back. I always assume that the one I've done is the last one. And then I'm always delighted if the phone rings and they offer me another one. And I hope they do.
So whenabouts do you find out where you're going next?
Literally depends. The last few years, because they basically picked up people who were available and sort of moved us to another venue with Brian. It's been much earlier in the year, and you can kind of work it out because they always announce which ones, and you think, well, that theatre, and that theatre. The last time they had Cinderella, Brian did it, so we won't be going there, or whatever. But I think, and everything's always up for changing. Because Brian is in EastEnders, it's more difficult for them to work out how, when, and where. So I have a feeling that maybe if I do pantomime, it might be like a different setup. That's not me kind of saying Brian's not doing panto, but he might very well. But there are limited places that he can go because of his contract with EastEnders, and a lot of those places have had Cinderella recently. So there may be a bit of a shake-up. Who knows? They may not. They may put us all together again. None of us may be. I don't really know, but it can be anything between sort of March and May, usually March, April, May, sometime around that time.
What's the best thing about doing panto? I mean, I love panto. It looks fun to do, but is it as much fun to...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. I do it all year. I don't care that it's 12 shows a week. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I absolutely love it. Yeah, I don't really have anything negative to say. I mean, the changing, why do people wear tights? I mean, I don't get it. I know after 13 years, I am no better at putting on tights than I was at the beginning. I just don't get it. But other than that, I've got nothing negative to say about pantomime. I just love it. And I think it's really important as well. And, the serious side is it's for a lot of kids, it's their first experience of theatre. And I think it hooks them in. We haven't had babes in the show, little kids in the show for the last few years because of COVID, understandably. I think they're sort of bringing them back now that, and I think that's really important because 9 times out of 10, the kids' mums, the chaperones, were usually panto babes themselves. It kind of, it's fed through the generations. And it's just a really important way to get kids into theatre. And it's one of the few things left now that is done on every generational, you come with grandma and mum and dad. And, so you get this multi-generational experience, which doesn't happen a lot now, just because of the way society is. So.
How do you keep each panto different? Because I mean, Cinderella is always going to be Cinderella, but does it get tiring doing it every year? Or do you try and find ways to
not for me. My mum always says, "Oh, can't you do something else?" Because she comes to see it every year, and she's like, "Oh, Cinderella so many times." It just evolves, I think. Really, different things come in. We used to be Trini and Susanna when I first started out. Well, nobody knows who they are, and then you became, I don't know, Whitney and Brittany, and then you became whoever the. Alicia and somebody else, I can't remember now, whoever Britain's Got Talent, Amanda and Alicia. And now we're kind of who are we? Who are the hosts? Gosh,
Tess and Claudia?
Tess and Claudia. Yeah, we're now Tess and Claudia. And presumably if Claudia went, I'm not doing Strictly anymore, and somebody else came in, that's who we'd be. We did have 1 year of being, do you remember the royal wedding when it was William and Kate's wedding, when Beatrice and Eugenie wore the funny hats? We were
Yeah.
beetroot and aubergine that year. So that it just evolves, and then what used to be Britain's Got Talent became the Masked Singer kind of spoof, and so things just evolve, and the references change, obviously. But actually, that familiarity, there are certain core things that in our version never changed. The ticket tearing is, I mean, I can do the ticket tearing now. It's kind of just inbred in me somewhere. It's just in my brain after 13 years. So there you are, girl, straight in, and putting her in the wardrobe at the end and hiding her from the prince, and all of those sort of set routines are still there. I love it. I just think it's just a joy to be a part of.
So do you get a lot of say in the creative process with Panto now that you've been doing it for so long, or is it a case they give you a script and that's it?
It's this one I've done for the last 5 years is such a well-oiled machine. That we don't tinker with it that much, to be honest. And of course, you're doing it to new audiences in different parts of the country, so they haven't seen it before. So no, nobody is ever kind of stomps your creativity, but it's kind of a well-oiled machine, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we tend to leave it pretty much alone. Yes, so no, we don't. It's not that I don't have a part in the creative process at all. Catherine Rooney, who's directed the last 5, is very open to people to kind of try new things, and she actually tweaks things every year so that it doesn't get stale. We'll do a different entrance, or we'll do a different song coming on, or whatever. So it never stays stale. But when it's got its rhythm, it's silly. We don't change things for the sake of changing them.
No. And what panto stuck out for you the most that you remember doing that you?
My first one, because it was also new and exciting, and that was with Nathan Kiley was my sister, and Nikki Evans was fairy godmother, the Crankies, who were just stunning to work with, stunning, and Stefan Dennis from Neighbours. I was the first one to go to him and call him Paul in the rehearsal. Paul Robinson. So that was really incredible, and we did. I mean, also they used to run so much longer. We did it to the end of January. I think I went home on February the 1st with that one, and we did 120 shows or something. And I watched the Crankies do their song sheet when Jeanette's the little boy every show, and it made me laugh every show. They were just brilliant to watch and to work with. So that one really stands out. Bristol, I did Bristol Hippodrome. That's my home theatre, so that really stood out because I had so many friends and family coming, and I loved Plymouth. Actually, we had a brilliant time because everybody's so far away from home. It was party central, really. Well, when I say party, I mean like a quiet glass of wine in a hotel bar after the show party. That's the sort of partying I do. But that was lovely. We all got together on Christmas Day because then I went home for Christmas, and Brian was always very, very generous. So yeah, I've had some really, none of them have been horrendous.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about being an actor? I mean, some people think it's a really glamorous job. It's not at the heart of it. Is there a bit you think, or people outside of the industry need to know about what it's actually like to be an actor?
I think people don't really think about the fact that you're self-employed, and that can be tough because when you finish a job on a Saturday night, there ain't no more money coming in. That's it, you're done. And usually you've spent one job kind of paying off a bit of stuff, from the time you were out of work before, and then you finish the job and you go, hurrah, I'm back at zero, and then move on. There's that. The glamorous thing is hilarious. That always makes me laugh. But having said that, I also get very bored with actors going, we chose to do this. We knew it was bumpy. All our parents said, are you sure? All our teachers said, are you sure? It's a very, and so you have to take the rough with the smooth. There are very, very, somebody once said I heard somebody say, it's like being addicted to a very expensive drug because the highs are very high and the lows are very low. And that does basically sum it up. But I think it's that, I also think what people don't really realize, they think, oh, you go to an audition, you didn't get it, you go to the next one. you actually are putting yourself on the line, and that's where I think a lot of people struggle, especially when they're starting out and you're finding your feet. If you are going in and it's your talent, it's what you look like, and it's how you present yourself, and if you're constantly told, no, that's not what we're looking for, is what you're told, but what you hear is it's not good enough, that can be very, very, very hard. But there's much more support out there now than when I first started, definitely, with helplines and people to talk to and stuff. So I think and there's always just that fear that something's going to go wrong. If you broke your leg, you'd be out of work, you couldn't even audition. So what happens then with money? What happens in your old age with money if you haven't been able to, my equity pension is I call it my toothpaste pension, because it will keep me a toothpaste when I'm old. That's it. So that never leaves you, unless obviously you hit the big time, but that's less than 1%.
Yeah. Do you think this industry has changed a lot since you first started, and do you think it still needs to change and evolve to adapt with a sort of a modern society?
Absolutely, it has. Yeah. It's changed massively. When I first started working, there wasn't even an email. We only just had mobile phones. I had a pager. I got my first jobs through my agent leaving a message on my pager. And I used to write checks for my commission. They'd send me a monthly bill, and I'd write a check and post it back. And when I did La Cage aux Folles in Germany, in Frankfurt, and I just remembered we were paid in cash. We used to go on to the theatre on a Friday, get a check, go and cash the check, and I just came home with a suitcase full of Deutschmarks, as they were then. So it's changed massively, and it has to keep evolving, and it will keep evolving. And some of the things you think, oh, it's not what it used to be, but there are many, many other things that are better. And I think I probably say this because I'm older. I think it's more youth driven today, but society is more youth driven. So it just reflects what's going on, and that does not mean that there isn't space for old turns like me. It's just different. You look in the West End now, and it's much more. I think it's aiming at, you don't see those huge, like when I first started working, it was all revivals, or new shows, but it was things like Crazy for You or whatever, which of course is coming back, but so bad example, but it is much more pop youth driven now. But that's good, because you need young people to come to the theatre, and young people don't want to see they don't want to see the shows that I want to see. They don't want to see.
Well, I've noticed recently a lot of cast announcements. Casts seem to be getting younger. I noticed in Les Mis, for example, they've got understudies for Thénardiers in their 20s.
Yeah.
I think on the tour, when it first went out on tour a few years ago, the new production, the first cover for Madame Thénardier just left drama school.
Right.
And I was looking at it and going, I'm sure she's fantastic in the role, but where are all these old actors that...
But I have to say, the flip side of that is that you talk to some older actors and you say, do you want to go on tour? And they go, oh no, I don't, I want to be at home.
Yeah.
So and touring is not fun anymore. That's something, I mean, actually really working on this, but touring is no fun. Just living in, I mean, I'm too old now to go and live in somebody's spare room, however lovely they are. It's the only profession in the world. If you were, I don't know, if you're a business working in business somewhere, they wouldn't say, oh, you've got a meeting in Hull next week. Here's a list of houses, people who rent their rooms out to you. It just wouldn't happen. Yeah. So that's got to change. I mean, I would prefer it just went to the American model and they put us in hotels.
Yeah.
And you move from place to place. That's what I would prefer. But I know it is nice being able to cook yourself or be in apartments or stuff. But
I think tour digs are the worst. I mean, I'm not toured myself, but I see a lot on Twitter about actors and that who've had bad experiences. I think the other week an actor put up on something on Twitter. They don't know what show they were doing, but they've been kicked out of their digs because they've complained about something not working, and they were shouted at by.
I think it's without sort of pointing a finger. I also think that the the theatres used to be part of towns when digs first started. You know, the very sadly closing Oldham Coliseum still is the heart of the town, which is what makes it so terrible it's closing. But that's another side. But they would come to the plays. The people in the town would come to the plays. They knew the actors, and that's how it all started, with staying in people's houses. And now there's no engagement between the buildings and the local community on a personal level. And so that's gone. So they don't understand that you phone up somebody and they say, oh, it's £300 to stay in my spare room for the week. And you go, but I've only got 180. And they don't know what that touring allowance. So there's no connection between the two. And I do think that's what's sad. You know, you used years ago, like opening night of a pantomime, everybody in the dress run, it would be all of the theatrical landladies would come. But that's sort of that bit, the jigsaw is missing. So subsequently, the whole digs thing just doesn't work anymore. And they're always out of date. These lists are the most depressing things to go through, because either people have got there before you, or they're out of date and they say, oh, I don't do it anymore, or you can stay this week but you can't stay that week, and I can't bear it. Airbnb.
If you could play any role in a musical or a play, what would it be?
I love this question. So I always say there are three roles that I would love to play. One I'm too old for, which is Rolf in The Sound of Music. I always wanted to play Rolf in The Sound of Music. My days of being 17 going on 18, they are well gone. I always want to play Eddie in Blood Brothers, the posh brother. Always, always, always. I think I'm too tall and probably too old. And the other one I'll probably never play, but I always wanted to play Harold Hill in The Music Man. But now that Hugh Jackman's done it, I don't think anybody's going to go jump casting wise from Hugh Jackman to Ben Stock. So I think that's
but you never know.
That ship has sailed. But those are the three. And the other ones that I always wanted to do were Cornelius and Hello Dolly, which I did. Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast, which I did. And I always wanted to do Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors, which I did at school, so I kind of did that one. But those are the main three.
What shows have you seen sort of recently that have really stuck out for you?
Well, I've been going to a lot of cabarets. I went to see Liz Robertson the other night, and who was brilliant, and Kim Criswell, who was amazing. I'm going to see Back to the Future tomorrow, which I can't wait for. My friend Glenn Facey is playing the Michael J. Fox part, whatever, is it Marty? Tomorrow, so I'm going to support him. What have I seen? The Palladium Panto was stunning.
I saw that.
It was absolutely brilliant. I'm trying to think what I've seen. I've seen loads of things recently. I've got such a terrible memory. So obviously, you're saying, did they stick out? And I'm going, oh, what did I say? I loved the Dolly Parton Christmas Carol at the Festival Hall. It was set in Tennessee. It was absolutely stunning. And Noises Off was another. I saw that the other day. And Rob Madge's show. That's the one. Rob Madge's My Son Is a Queer. Absolutely brilliant.
One final question. What would your advice to anyone coming into this industry be?
Say yes. Just do it. Don't think about it. Just say yes. If you say no, you sit at home. If you say yes, you meet new people, you get experiences. Yeah, it might not be exactly what you thought the dream was going to be, but say yes. Just do it. And don't limit yourself. I'd always wanted to do like a one-man cabaret thing. And I thought, oh, no one's going to come, no one's going to come, no one's going to come. And then I did a tour and it folded and we didn't get paid. And I was like, okay, now I need to do something that's mine. If I want to do it for £20, that's my choice. I needed some control. And I've just had the most amazing time doing it. And it's opened up. I sort of feel like I'm never really out of work because there's always something coming up. I did a cabaret on Monday. I'm doing one next week at the Actors Retirement Home, Brinsworth House. I've got a Noel Coward one coming. It's opened so many doors. And it's just because I just decided that I wasn't going to limit myself. I thought, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to put on a show and no one's going to come. I'm going to sing a load of songs to my mum because I know I'll sell one ticket to my mum. So just say yes and don't limit yourself. Create your own work because work breeds work. Yeah.
Look, thank you for talking to me, Ben. It's been nice to chat to you.
And you. Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope to see you in something soon.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right, Dom. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Okay.
Bye-bye.